Welcome to the deep dive. Keeping those complex Kubernetes applications updated, it can feel, well, chaotic, like constant manual firefighting. But there is a way to automate that, a smoother path. Today, we're diving into two big players for Kubernetes beginners, GitHub Actions and Azure DevOps pipelines, CI/CD tools that can help. Our mission: cut through the noise, compare them clearly, and help you figure out which one fits best for automating your Kubernetes delivery. Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah, and what's fascinating here is it's not just about going faster. It's really about reliability, about getting those deployments consistent every single time. These tools are pretty essential because they fix common headaches, inconsistent environments, tests getting skipped, slow feedback loops, all that stuff. They turn manual, error-prone steps into, well, automated workflows.
Yeah.
GitHub Actions often leans towards simplicity, event-driven workflows. Azure Pipelines, it tends to offer more structure, think stages, approvals, good for more complex, maybe enterprise needs. The choice impacts your whole development flow.
That's a really clear distinction right up front. So for someone new to this, let's zoom in. What really separates them? Here's where it gets really interesting, I think. Integration and ecosystem. How do they plug into everything else?
Right. GitHub Actions, well, its biggest strength is that native, seamless integration with GitHub repositories. If your code's already on GitHub, it just feels natural. Plus, the GitHub marketplace is huge. Thousands of pre-built actions for Kubernetes tasks, like deploying with Helm, which simplifies managing Kubernetes apps, and for connecting to Azure securely. It uses OpenID Connect, OIDC. Think of it like a secure digital passport between GitHub and Azure. No need to juggle secrets manually.
Okay, so super tight integration if you're living in GitHub. Got it. But what about Azure pipelines, especially if you're maybe already using Azure services?
Yeah.
Exactly. Azure DevOps Pipelines really shines there. It's optimized for the Azure ecosystem, things like Azure Kubernetes Service, AKS, Azure Container Registry, and it fits tightly with the whole Azure DevOps suite, giving you kind of a unified platform if you're using their boards, repos, artifacts, etc. For security, it uses things like service connections and Azure Managed Identities. Managed identities are great because Azure handles the credential lifecycle for you, basically. Makes connecting to AKS much easier, less risky, especially for beginners.
That paints a really clear picture where your stuff already matters a lot. But let's shift gears slightly. What about the actual experience for a beginner? Ease of use, flexibility, how do they feel?
For just getting started quickly, GitHub Actions often feel simpler. The interface is familiar if you use GitHub. The workflows are event-driven, defined in YAML files. Event-driven just means actions like pushing code, trigger the pipeline automatically. And YAML, well, it's designed to be human-readable, so it's generally pretty good for custom deployments or if you want something lightweight.
Okay, so maybe a gentler on-ramp with actions. What about Azure pipelines then? You said more structured.
Yeah, Azure DevOps Pipelines is definitely more structured. It uses concepts like stages and approval gates more explicitly. This is fantastic for robust, multi-stage rollouts. Think dev, staging, prod, with checks at each point. Really solid for enterprise scenarios. But that structure, all those features, it can mean a slightly steeper learning curve right at the very beginning compared to Actions, especially if CI/CD is totally new to you.
Right, makes sense. Different philosophies almost.
Yeah.
Okay, this is super helpful. So let's bring it together. The big question. When should you, the listener, choose one over the other?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it really boils down to where your code lives and what kind of deployment process you need or want. So GitHub Actions, ideal if your project's on GitHub, obviously, or if you want those flexible event-driven workflows. Also great if you're a beginner looking for something intuitive, maybe minimal setup, like deploying a simple web app to AKS using a Helm action right after you push code. Pretty straightforward.
Okay, GitHub focus, flexibility, easier start. Got it.
Then Azure DevOps Pipelines. It's probably your best bet if you're already deep in Azure, using AKS or other Azure services heavily. Or if you need that structured multi-stage pipeline with formal approvals more common in larger teams or for critical applications. Or if you just want everything managed within the Azure DevOps platform itself. Think deploying that same web app, but with clear dev, staging, prod stages, maybe needing a manager's click to go live.
That makes a lot of sense. Different needs, different tools.
And, it's not always an either. Some teams actually use both. They might use GitHub Actions for the quick build and test, the CI part, because it's fast and integrated with their code, and then hand off to the deployment artifact to Azure Pipelines for the more controlled multi-stage CD part. You can get the best of both worlds.
Ah, interesting. Combining them is an option too. Okay. So what does this all mean? Let's recap the key takeaways. Both tools are powerful allies for automating Kubernetes CI/CD, even for beginners. They solve real problems with manual deployments.
Exactly. They both empower you, but offer different strengths. GitHub Actions gives you that tight repo integration and event-driven flexibility. Azure Pipelines provides that structured, enterprise-ready framework, especially strong within the Azure cloud. Your choice depends on your context.
Right. It depends on your project's home base and how you need to manage your deployments. So here's a final thought to chew on as you start your Kubernetes CI/CD journey. What's more critical for your very first step? Is it that deep integration with where your code lives, offering that agile event-triggered simplicity? Or do you need a more structured, perhaps enterprise-style deployment process from day one? There's no single right answer, but thinking about that might guide your choice. The best advice: just start experimenting. Build something small, get your hands dirty, and build that confidence.